Welcome to Beyond Sundays, a podcast from two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us and we'll stumble along the way, but we promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Hannah, here with Matt. We have a website you can use to keep our show links and socials all in one place. Make sure to check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We're so thankful for every listener, and we are thankful that you take the time to fit us into your busy life. You can help us grow by following, rating, and reviewing us on Apple and Spotify. Let us know if we were in your top podcasts.
Yeah, let us
on
know.
Apple or Spotify. We've heard from a couple of people. We do have the best listeners, and we just want to hear from more of them.
Absolutely. Shouts to the crowd, the community. Hannah, I still think we need a name for them. At one point, I pitched the Beyondies, but nobody's used it.
Beyondies is kind of good. Did you say that on a recording?
I don't know if I've ever said it on recording. It also reminds me of Blondies, which just makes me like hungry for the cookie brownie things.
Oh, see, I think of the coffee drink at.
Of course you do.
Yeah, at Seven Brew. Speaking of which, I cannot make a good coffee at my mom's house. I'm like, this is awful.
Oh no. Sorry, listeners. You'll be getting Hannah's B+ podcasting today because she doesn't have a good coffee. No good.
Not a good coffee. Hey, we are.
Yeah.
What? Are we 2 weeks from Christmas?
We are recording on December 10th at exactly 2 weeks from Christmas Eve.
That's wild. Now, are you the Christmas shopper, or does Michelle do all of that?
You have known us for a long time, and you know Michelle, and you already know the answer to that. Yes.
Yeah.
I kick in, though. It depends on the person. I feel like I'm better at helping with certain types of people on our list than I am others. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Does she have all the gifts wrapped already?
Yeah, she gets on that pretty fast. That's one of those things, like, I don't want you to think I'm just like a meathead over here not helping with anything around the house, but if people want a crisply wrapped present, they do not want me to do it. It's just better. Yeah, it's just better.
I wrap the gifts at our house, but sure. I go figure. I get a decent amount done before, but that last percentage that I'd say is like 10%, and it's not always the same people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not done. And I may think about that in a week and a half. I mean,
but isn't that part of the Christmas rush? Isn't that part of Christmas? The last second? No? Okay.
I don't know. I feel like maybe it steals some of the joy.
Really? I thought that was just all part of it. Like, it's just, oh, it's coming at you. It's so fast. It's so awesome. Wow.
I will say this Christmas season, Christmas season has been better than most, I feel, because I've been taking things slower. So like I'm turning on like Christmas ambiance music and I'm wrapping gifts. Usually I hate to wrap gifts. I really don't enjoy it, but I've been trying to do it while I'm watching TV. So then it's, I'm relaxing and the tree's lit. And so I'm just trying to, enjoy the whole thing. I'm loving it. And then we had that snow that wasn't crazy, but oh my gosh, if it would do that once a week, I would be so happy.
Yeah. Now only snow like bad if you're going to keep me home from school where I can stay in my pajamas. But if you want to dust the ground, I'm fine. Anything in between, I don't want anything difficult, but I want to be able to get out or not. You know what I mean?
Exactly the same way.
Yeah.
But I don't want something that I can't get out of until like January, February. Don't give me that in December.
Yes.
Too much going on. Christmas rush.
Too many things. Yeah.
There's too much to do. So gifts, I still feel like I have a tremendous amount to do. It's stressing me out a little bit.
Now, do you prefer, like, we live in the age of like the Amazon wish list. That is big in our family. So both sides of our family that we buy for, everybody's got a wish list. Do you like that? Or do you like the spontaneity of being able to pick out a good gift for someone?
I like being able to pick out a good gift for someone, but I do like someone to give me some ideas. So sometimes it just ends up being whatever they send. Yeah. We should get more into the Amazon list. My mom just said that this year. She's like, you guys all ask me, I should just send you guys a list, an Amazon list of the things that I want. But there's something about going into a store and finding something that you're like, oh, this is great. It's difficult to do that for some people in my family though, because you're not just, they kind of buy the things that they like.
Yeah.
I try to do things that are like intentional and can be made sometimes, but then I end up doing the same thing for everybody, just different years at a time. Let's get a book that everybody signs and writes a letter for. And, that's sweet stuff. But
Now, just a hint out there to anybody who is going to buy for me for Christmas, any of my family members listening, and they know this, but listen, I'm not at all a Christmas snob. I'm grateful for what anybody gets me. I think it's
Sure.
awesome. Except if you go and get me a book, you need to go to my pre-approved book list. Okay.
That's fair.
So there's some guys that are big on like a tool brand, like it's got to be a Milwaukee or it's got to be DeWalt, it's got to be something like that. I couldn't care less about that stuff. But if you're going to get me a book, that is my life. I'm putting my time into those things. And so
Yeah.
I don't need you to just find something random you think I'll like. I have a world of things I like and they're all on Amazon. Please buy
Okay.
used.
Totally,
Totally. Christmas,
totally.
you're on it. We need to get you some coffee. Get
Something
this
is
woman some
going
coffee.
on.
Yeah.
It's been a weird day, but really side note, and I want to know if listeners will send anything to us about this. I want a good book on the armor, putting on the armor of God.
Ooh.
Your eyes just lit up, so I'm wondering.
I do not have one. I was just thinking, wow, I've been in this fiction reading mode and I haven't done that
Yeah,
much in my life, but I've been in that. I need to get back into some of these things. That would be a good topic. I like that.
I want a book that's
Hmm.
on that. I want to do something like that for the youth group. So anybody that I will
Mm.
say, if you know of a book and you're looking for a gift for me, I don't have to pre-approve it. I just want something about.
Oh, now I feel bad.
No, you shouldn't feel bad for that. You shouldn't feel bad for that. A lot of stuff gets regifted, because
Yeah,
people
yeah.
don't follow the list.
Okay.
Just
So
follow
the
the list.
armor of God, that's what you want.
Yeah. So
You just want to be
send
able
in
to
some.
pull up the shield, huh? The shield of
Yes.
salvation. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. I got to
No,
teach
it's
the
a
young
shield of faith.
people.
It's a shield of faith. Don't stop listening. I know what they are. Sorry. Yeah.
We'll forgive you.
Okay.
Okay. So today I'm
Yeah.
super excited about our topic.
Me too.
We are going to talk about the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Mm.
And so in that parable, Jesus is asked, what do you do to be saved? Jesus responds, and in Jesus's response, he asked that question, and then the guy is like, okay, well, what do you do to make blah blah blah? The guy responds, love the neighbor as yourself, and then
Hmm.
says, well, who is my neighbor?
Hmm.
So that's where all of this comes from. And then we get inside the story, and I'm just going to give a
Yeah.
really quick synopsis of it.
Sure.
You get into the story where there is a man going from Jerusalem to Jericho, and on his
Hmm.
way down, he is attacked by robbers and he is beaten and he's left on the side of the road. Weird thing to think about. But I will say, when I'm reading, I guess Jericho, some of the reasons that was important is there were a bunch of caves, and typically,
Oh,
did you
I did
see?
not know that.
Okay.
No, no.
That's what I had read.
Okay.
So that there were caves and lots of robbers in that area.
Oh,
Anyway.
sure.
Okay.
Hideouts.
Yes. And so he's beaten, he's left laying on the side of the road. And then you have this priest that comes along and he sees the man and he crosses the road and just leaves him there.
Nope.
And then you have somebody who works for the temple who is a Levite, walks by, leaves him there.
Deuces.
And deuces. And then last, you have another man that comes by who is a Samaritan. And a Samaritan, what I want to say this one piece, what I find so interesting is the Jews did
Mhm.
not speak to or get involved with the Samaritans.
Mhm.
The Jew or the Samaritan felt compassion, and I want to talk about that in a little bit.
Mhm.
And so he chose to help him, takes him to an innkeeper, pays for him to be there for 2 weeks, tells the innkeeper if he has to stay there longer, and he, helps his wounds with the wine and the oil, leaves him there, says if he's going to be there longer, I will continue paying for it. So that is a quick synopsis of what happens in the parable. Do you have any context that you want to bring to that story specifically?
I want to say three things that will
Tell
not
us
be
the three.
long, but
Okay.
I want to talk about them for a second. First of all, you said it. It is incredibly important context for this story when the guy is like, how am I saved? That
Yeah.
is where this is coming out of. This is not just like Jesus just giving you some psychological tips about how you live a satisfied life. This
Yeah.
is life and death stuff for God. This is how he wants us to treat people. I just think we overlook that when we start telling the story. We get lost in all the meaning of the story, and there's so many layers, and I know we'll talk about all of them, but wow, that is how am I saved? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
the purpose of the whole thing. So I just
Yeah.
don't want to miss that context. It's so
Yep.
important.
Yep.
Number two, you also just said this too, but I just want to reiterate. I think a lot of times, we can talk about this later if you want, we get caught in just the primary care. Oh, that guy's beat up.
Yes.
I want to go pour some wine on his wounds. By the way, are we missing out on some kind of medical procedure that we just don't know about anymore?
I think we should pass on that. Like,
Is
how is
wine
that?
like the triple antibiotic ointment of the ancient world?
There's no way that felt good. There's no
No,
way.
it couldn't have. Okay, but anyway, I think it's also instructive and important that he paid for his recovery,
Yeah.
and it is very easy for us to deal with somebody's current present crisis. Oh no. But it is a much different and more difficult thing to deal with somebody's longer term issues with what they're going through. And I
Yeah.
just think that again, I think that part of the story is kind of brushed over, or maybe I am guilty of brushing it over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to highlight those two things. I know I said three, but now I can't remember the third and I didn't
That's
write it down.
okay.
So I'm pulling Hannah.
Nope, that's typical. Every single time my brain gets
It'll
going
probably
and I
come to
think
me.
about
It's
all these,
okay.
it'll come to you. I
Yeah,
want to say this too before I get into some of the discussion that I want to
sure.
have about this. I do feel that, as Jesus usually did with parables, this is redefining that question of who is my neighbor? And it
Yes.
kind of changes it to, am I acting like a neighbor? And that's
Mm.
that's kind of the presentation of it. Um, Also, this whole entire chapter. So it is Luke chapter 10. That portion is 25 through 37.
Hmm.
But if you look through that whole chapter, towards the beginning, you have the 72 disciples that Jesus is sending out
Okay.
that come back. And then at the end, you have the story of Mary and Martha, where Jesus kind of corrects, and I always forget which one. I think is it correct Martha
He
for,
corrects. Oh no.
I know, I always get them mixed up. He corrects
He
one of
corrects
them.
Martha because Martha's working and Mary's sitting at his feet. Yes.
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 And so I love that you talk about this specific thing on Sunday mornings at church, is this idea of a theme. And I
Mm,
feel that Luke
mm,
chapter 10 covers this whole theme of what it means to be a disciple and what Jesus is calling us to be and to really look like. And so again, you have where he specifically sends out these 72, and there's some specific things in there that we won't go into. But then you have
it's
the
interesting.
parable. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have the parable where again he's redefining. So how do we act towards
Mm,
these people that are different than us? And for the first time in my whole entire life, it's so funny. The Mary and Martha story clicked to me because I've always again felt like Martha was doing something.
yeah.
Why was he? And I promise you, I was sitting at my desk at school and saw that they were in the same chapter, and it finally connected to me
Mm,
that it that Martha, what Martha was doing is what most of us do in our life, and we
mm,
do things for the church,
mm.
and we're setting things up and we're facilitating activities, but we're not being the Mary who really hears what Jesus is calling us to do. And so I'm like, okay, now I feel convicted because
Yeah,
you
me
look at,
too. Thanks a lot.
well, you look at this parable, and my husband has really challenged me in these areas. Are we really living out this radical idea
Yeah.
of what Jesus has asked of us? And I think we dilute it a
Mm,
lot because it is uncomfortable and it does require something of us. And this specific parable speaks to that. And so I want to pull into some of those layers.
yeah.
And for our listeners, I just want to preface with some of the questions we're going to go into. And then Matt and I will discuss. And there are some things that I don't know the answer to. So I'm
I
hoping
don't
that
either.
we find something, some sort of resolution. So
Yeah.
some of the questions are, who is my neighbor? And what does this look like in a church setting? What does it not look like?
Mm,
How have we diluted it? And then have people abused people's kindness? Have people abused the Good Samaritan?
mm.
So I want
Those
to
are all
start.
hefty. Yeah.
They really are. And you and I we've been in church our whole life.
We have.
And I feel like sometimes it's easier for people that come into the church to see these things. Like
It's like a fresh perspective, kind
it's
of.
it's fresh. And so when I ask myself the question, who is my neighbor? I have a quick answer to that. Well, everybody's my neighbor,
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you really have the rubber meet the road, and if you're honest, you start to think about the type of people that typically come to churches. Um, it's very easy to make light of those people in all transparency.
Of course.
It's
A certain
very,
subset of people. There. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you want to give a description or not, but
sure.
like,
No,
it's
no, I
the
don't.
people that don't. It's the people that don't fit in anywhere else.
Hmm.
It is very easy for us to take care of and call the neighbor. Like, would I call you my neighbor? Yes, of course. I love you. You're great. I like hanging
Sure.
out with you. I like talking to you. But then, like, the subset of people that it's difficult to hang out with and talk with and care about, and yeah, that's your neighbor too.
It's almost like in this parable though. He's showing us it's the ones that you have. Okay, guys listening, we're just being real here. It's the
Yeah.
people that you have to listen and talk to when what they're saying is of no interest to you.
Hmm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
those are the neighborly people. I mean, I get to this point and thinking again of this Samaritan. He's the one who stopped. He would have been the one persecuted. And yet he stopped for the man that was in the road. I heard somebody say this, and I'm curious to hear your thought. And I don't remember the correct terms, but if you're thinking of like extremes in politics, you
Mm.
have like that far right and that far left, like the
Hmm.
extreme. It would be like the far, far, far right stopping for somebody in the road that was the far, far, far left. Right?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. And I'm glad that you're talking about this because this led me to remember the third thing I was going to say,
Oh, okay,
and
good.
it feeds right in. I mean, what a unnecessary thing for me to get ready to say here, but Jesus is such a master storyteller
Yeah.
that he takes these societal threads and he weaves them together in a story that, I mean, guys, I'm here to tell you, fiction, books, TVs, movies, so many properties pull on these Good Samaritan,
Yeah.
threads, and they make it into the fiction that we still. I mean, you can still go see it on TV shows and movies. I can't. I don't like have an example off the top of my head, but this is you're talking about like an elemental part of humanity. Do I care about my other people, my fellow humans? Do I trust my fellow humans? This is like a radical reordering of society by Jesus here, and uh, 2025 is so tribal
Yeah.
that it's almost
Yeah.
impossible for us to get ourselves in the mindset of the story. Like when you're talking about far left and far right, I feel like a far right or far left would like spit on the other person and just laugh at them and go on. And that is like antithetical to what Jesus is talking about here.
Well, think about how often we heard uh, people say from one side and the other. You'd hear like with the COVID vaccine, if people didn't get a COVID vaccine, people may say, "Well, I don't want them to die, but if they
Yeah,
do, that's what happens."
it's
And
their choice. Yeah.
it's their or from the opposite side. Well, they if they get that and get sick, then well, you hear that, and that
Yeah.
is so
Uh,
it's so far removed from what Jesus is saying here that it convicts me. And I've heard again, I mentioned this recently, but I heard Francis Chan talk about this idea of being compassionate and radical Christianity, that he says, I think we have missed the whole mark. This idea of being radical isn't radical. It
mhm.
is it is what Jesus has
Right.
asked us
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
And it's
Exactly.
not comfortable.
It's
It's
radical to live that way as a human, but it's not like you have to live in a radical way if you're going to live for Jesus. There is no radical Christian. It's just Christian.
it's just
Christianity
Christian.
just asks you to do radical things. And the way our tribal society is now, it just drains the trust out of society. Just
Yeah.
drains it of all trust. You are paranoid about everybody around you. You think bad things about the people around you. And just contrast that between what we are living in now and this story that Jesus is telling. And it could not be any more alien the way that Jesus is telling the story versus the way people act in society now. And it's just a sad thing.
It
This
is.
is what it's like. This is the broken world we're living in, and this is the world Jesus is trying to show us how to live in. And we are so far away; it's not even funny.
I was there there's an aspect of time protection that I was
Sure.
pressed on very recently, like when the last couple days, that I'm not at a point that I feel comfortable sharing in the podcast. You and
Okay.
I could talk about it soon. Some
Okay.
point I would. Um, I will say this, I found myself in a state that I was envious is the only word. I mean, I wasn't mad at God. I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't angry. I was envious of something that somebody else had and was doing.
Hmm.
And go figure, because I am who I am, I just sobbed and cried, and that's just what I do.
Well,
My
this
husband's
happens.
consoling me,
Yeah.
But it was this idea of, I really try to protect my time, and I want to do that. And I feel there's benefit in that. I think you and I agree on that
Hmm.
aspect.
Hmm.
It's important. But as I was watching what this person did, and the results of what they were doing,
Mm,
um, their time wasn't protected the same way I protected my time. And I feel
mm.
like I am a giver. I feel like I'm a giver and I give of my time. So I don't know. Maybe without context, it's hard to really dive into that. But there's a part of me that I feel like is being pulled and pressed that I don't know how to balance that yet, because I feel like we have to have boundaries
Hmm.
and have to have, I mean, you have to protect your family, you have to protect your mind.
Hmm.
But are we again missing marks and opportunities to go out and to minister and to be in that protection? And I don't know.
I think we are missing points, but I think you're bringing up something incredibly valuable here that deserves to be said before we talk about the story anymore. I don't think the story of the prodigal son is meant to be a textbook for how we help people. I don't think it's supposed to have all the answers. I don't think we're supposed to be able to, like flip to page 178 and go to bullet point number 14 and see what you do in this circumstance with this person.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what Jesus is doing. I think Jesus is playing on those big themes. And part of the struggle of following him is we have to take these big themes and we have to prayerfully and carefully apply them to our lives in certain situations. So I hope that you don't feel like convicted because of I said the prodigal, I meant the
You
Good
did, but I
Samaritan.
knew what
I'm
you
so
meant.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, listeners. I hope you don't feel convicted by the Good Samaritan story because I feel like you are living the big threads of it. And
Mm-hmm.
how that goes into the individual threads of your life, I think there's room for that. Is that
Well,
crazy?
no, I think that you're right, because I feel like, and again, we're still staying in this thread, obviously, of the Good Samaritan, but I do feel like over the last year and in this development, with being able to dive into the word the way we have, I have kind of found and wormed my way out of this shame that I always
Good.
lived in of I was never enough, I was not doing enough. And
Yeah.
so I feel
Great.
enlightened in ways. And so with this specific situation, I don't feel a conviction, but
Okay, good.
I do feel the envy is not right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know how to deal with it yet. And I understand, like, I don't feel that it's that God's like, oh, you're going to hell because you have this. It's just there.
Mm,
But because of who I am, I do feel like I'm like, so, okay, so how do I get that? And
mm.
what that person has is not a bad thing. It's not bad to want that. So it's not like I feel like, oh my gosh, I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more. It's like, how do I do more, or how do I do what I'm doing in a more productive way? And you see that with the Good Samaritan, where he helps
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
sends him off to someone,
Yeah.
you
That's true.
know?
Hmm.
So it's just figuring out how to balance that. I hope that makes
It
sense.
makes complete sense. And I think what you're doing is you're doing something that's invaluable as a Christian. You're wrestling with the word. And I
Oh,
think
that is true. It does feel like that.
yeah, but I think a lot of people aren't willing to wrestle with the word when it starts to get uncomfortable, or, just to continue this tortured wrestling metaphor, if the word pins your shoulder in a place and it doesn't feel good, people just get out of that hold as fast as they can rather than staying there and sitting in it and asking, why does it hurt? What
Yeah,
is it about this that is stretching me? I think that's an invaluable thing. I mean, more than invaluable, I think that you have to do that as a Christian, and I think that many people just don't.
I agree. And I think that's why stories like this become like of the, I keep wanting to say the prodigal son now too.
I know. Sorry, I messed this up.
No, I
Good
think that's
Samaritan. Yeah.
I think that's why stories like the Good Samaritan become a be kind story. Be kind to others. Be
Mm.
kind to people around you. When
There
they
is that in it.
there is,
Yeah.
but I do feel
More.
it is so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And so when we think about that in the church context, because obviously at that time, um, church, they didn't have these buildings that they were meeting in and this complete organization. I mean, they were getting order together.
Yeah.
But when we think about it in the church context, how do you think this neighborly, how do you think that should look in a church? I mean, should it be a set out greeting? Like, here's our people that are greeters. Here are the people
Hmm.
that do this. Let's take the cards. Everybody say hi. What should that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think as far as administratively, the way that you're talking about, I think all those things are critical and important. But I think if that's all your church has is just that administrative gloss over, like, we welcome you. Hi, thanks for being here. Those things are necessary, but that to me is just like the skin deep stuff. And once a
Mm-hmm.
person is at the church for an extended time, I think you can start to make judgments of, well, they really mean those words or they really don't. And I think, at least in my opinion, and I'll be interested to see what you think. The two churches that I have been to in my life, I feel like have had a like genuine openness
Oh
and
yeah.
welcoming atmosphere to people. The place that we live in is relatively multicultural.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And both churches that I have been to have both been multicultural in their attendance and in their leadership. And not that this is not just the story's not about ethnicity only, but it is a component of it, right? You have a Samaritan and a Jewish person,
Hmm.
and there's something about reaching past some of those barriers and those boundaries. And I think as far as my participation in church, both churches I've been to have been good on that front. You are genuinely welcome here. You are genuinely, you can genuinely be a part of this. I don't think it's just a song and dance routine as far as what happens in the service. Now, what I also think is interesting is what happens to and with those church members outside the service, because
Hmm.
the Good Samaritan story doesn't have anything to do with the church building. It happens outside the church.
Yeah, because I start to think about like the kindness in the church. I agree. Both churches we have been to are, I feel, phenomenal churches and have loved on people. And you've seen it both in a convenient and inconvenient way.
Yes, I agree.
You've seen people conveniently go talk to people and help people, be with them at church. But also I have witnessed people buying vans for people. I have
Hmm.
witnessed
Hmm.
people going and picking up groceries when they themselves may not have had the money. So I
Hmm.
feel like we see both of those sides. I guess like I guess I wonder, you know, why sometimes that this is where I go to. Why sometimes that isn't enough. Um you give that, you do that, but that retention isn't there. But I guess that's not what the story
Are
is
you
saying at
defining
all.
enough by the fact that the person who's receiving the help doesn't always stick around in God's
Yeah.
family?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's fair to wonder, and I'm glad that you brought this up because is that part of the story, or is the Good Samaritan simply you are taking care of what you are supposed to do? You are doing what you're supposed to do, and ultimately it's got to be on the other person?
I so I think so.
Yeah.
I do think so. What do you think?
I, I mean,
I need
at the
confirmation
risk
here.
of doing what we always do and Beyond Sundays, I do agree with you. I think it could be frustrating, especially, and again, this podcast is self-selected for two leaders, and I think to a certain extent, you and I are always thinking like this in terms of retention and keeping people around.
Hmm.
But ultimately, the end of the story of the Good Samaritan just ends with the one guy taking care of the immediate needs and the secondary needs of the other guy. It doesn't have anything to do with the larger story. Jesus could have continued the story, right? He's making up the whole story. He could have taken the
Hmm.
story as long as he wanted to. It doesn't have anything to do with retention. So I think as far as are we living the threads of this genuine kindness and care and provision for other people? I think we're just called to do that. And at some point, the other person's got to come to Jesus.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think you're exactly right. And I don't know why I feel the connection to that, like the turn the other cheek thing.
Mm,
I, for some reason, feel the connection or feel like there's some sort of connection there
mm.
where it's just a matter of you only control you. And
Yeah.
so when you turn your other cheek,
You might get
it
hit again.
you might get hit again, but your job is just to turn the other cheek. Now,
Correct.
I want to, and not quite yet, but I do want to
Yeah.
get into that balance because there are people that listen that are members and have been members of churches for years, and so they have experienced that where you give and then it doesn't seem to be
Mm.
enough. So I do want to get into that,
Okay.
but I do want to address the part where in the parable where Jesus, or not where Jesus, where he's telling the story and he says that the Good Samaritan was moved by compassion.
Hmm.
And so that specific line is used at least, and this is just what I read in the cross references, at least 7 times throughout the Gospels, and usually it's Jesus.
It is.
And one of the stories that's one of my favorites is when the woman is bringing out her son and he's dead, and she has no idea that Jesus is there. She doesn't know who he is. She's not concerned with that, but she's weeping. Jesus is moved by compassion and
Mm.
goes to her.
Hmm.
And so it's like in this story, Jesus has put a nugget of something that he's already doing, not saying, hey, look at me doing this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's telling a story with that same idea, and it uses the same word that is used later on when they're retelling the story of Jesus. And there's absolutely no way I could ever read the Greek word. It's just a bunch of letters together. I have
Liam
no
doesn't
idea.
want you to anyway. We found
No,
that out.
we're not even trying it. But that word, whenever it's defined, it implies a deep, visceral empathy,
Mm.
which means it's the compassion that requires that we do something. And so obviously you can't just like, it's like if you see something on TV that talks about, the kids that need the care and
Yes.
you feel so sad and you cry,
Yes.
but if you don't call
Yes.
and give the money,
Yes.
it's not that kind of compassion.
Right.
It's the compassion that makes you do something. And so we
Mhm.
talk about these neighbors and we talk about them in church, but I think oftentimes these neighbors are not neighbors that God just puts in our path. They just happen to be there, and it's not always in church, you know?
There's no like divine appointment for you to run
No.
into somebody or you're just the world is the world and you're
Yeah.
living in the world and somebody needs something. And I think this story defines our neighbor as literally anybody who has a need in front of us in our way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I get from it. Yeah. And I think, uh, again, maybe I'm just projecting here, but I think lots of times we look for kingdom moments within a church setting.
Mm.
And I don't, so I say I'm projecting. I feel like I try to look for kingdom moments everywhere. But I do think sometimes we forget that we can do godly things outside of just the church. And just because it's not noticed, or, and I'm not saying we all need, this recognition, but there is something about the
Sure.
people around you noticing you're good.
Sure.
But just because we're not noticed, doesn't mean that we're not fulfilling what God has asked us to do. I think oftentimes the person we're helping is not, it's not noticed by other people.
No, it's not. And I think that's why the heart of this story is that the Good Samaritan is seeing the wounded man. He's seeing him the way that Jesus sees humans. To me, that is the
That's
deep
good.
call. That is the deep call of this story. When we see someone in need, we automatically, a lot of people, myself included, you sometimes too, I'm sure, starts making the calculation. Well, does this person deserve my help? Why are
Yeah.
they in that situation? What has just happened to them? Right? That didn't bear any at all in the story whatsoever. We have no idea why that guy got
No.
beat up. Not at
No.
all, right? Those
No.
dudes popped out of the cave and beat on him. We have no clue why. And the Samaritan didn't ask why. And so to me, this story really is about the way, again, God sees people. And it is difficult for us to get there, but he is trying to elevate us to a place where we see people the way God sees people.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something. See what you think.
Okay.
There's sometimes I think in our human mind, there's a difference between somebody who was beat up and left on the side of the road, even if they were beat up because they were trying to beat the other people up first,
Okay.
and helping them, compared to somebody who has asked for money 8 times and goes out and spends it on gambling every time. So how do you balance that? And I'm asking you, like, this is just off the top of my head. So sorry, I didn't prep you for that.
That's okay. Well, my answer to that is going to draw from another parable of Jesus and one that you like a lot too. And that is the one that I accidentally said earlier. Maybe this is why I made this connection, the prodigal son.
Mm-hmm.
That prodigal son strikes me as the type of person in some ways who has asked for help 8 times and has gone and blown it on the wrong things, has messed up repeatedly. And yet, what is the reaction of the father when the prodigal son finally comes home? He could not be happier about it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't worry about it, doesn't ask him where he's been, doesn't give him a lecture, doesn't do any of that, just goes and celebrates in the best way that he can. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, biblically speaking, and I don't want to come off as naive here, biblically speaking, I think the answer is you help. And it is then on the other person to figure it out, to deal with the help, to do those kinds of things. Is that being naive? Is that being closed-minded? Is that being stupid, blinded? Or that's the Bible to me.
Yeah, yeah. And so that I'm thinking through as you're saying that, I completely agree. But then I do think about the rest of that story. He was not the one that took care of him in the end, So he left and was only able to give what he could give. And then
Yes.
the innkeeper had to take the rest. I do think that Christians get a bad rap sometimes, whatever, sometimes, because we're expected just to give, and do.
Sure.
And there is there not that there's a cap on that, but like, I don't have $100,000. I don't know how many anywhere close to that to just give to people in need. But what I could do is, if you're having a problem, I can spend time with you, or help you.
But you only have so
budget.
much time. and you
and
only have so
yes,
much
that's
money.
what went through my head when I said that too. So what do you do? I mean, what do you do then? Do you provide, is it okay to provide somebody with the next resource, to give them what you have and then to provide them with the next resource?
Of course it is. Because, okay, I think it's time for, if you're okay with it, I think it's time to, you're already hinting at this idea of
Yeah.
what happens when people abuse the kindness. So here's the difference to me. The story, I almost said prodigal son again, what a moron. The story of the Good Samaritan is about a short-term interaction between two people. What I feel like you are questioning and talking about is you're thinking about
Okay.
longer term interactions with people. And so in your prompt that you sent us, you said, like, what happens if you start to feel manipulated or if people are taking advantage of it? This is my opinion. I have never done this, and I just want to see what you say. Do you think it's wrong or bad for the quote unquote good Samaritan, that's who we are supposed to be, in a longer term situation to say to the person we are helping, hey, I really, I'm feeling a little manipulated right now. I kind of feel like you're taking advantage of my kindness. Now, I'm sure there's a better way to say it, but
I don't
just
know.
trying to
I
say
don't know
it,
if there is.
just baldly to you. Is that so wrong? Is it so wrong for you to say, hey, this help that I'm giving is starting to feel like a weapon against me when I don't think that help is supposed to be weaponized against us?
I think you have to draw from the way the whole system is set up with Jesus. There is a point where, not that grace won't reach it, but there is a point where, like, you can't be in relationship with God anymore if you're not following his expectations. And I do think it's similar there, that like you can get to a point where you say, I have given and I have done what I needed to do, and now it's your turn to do your part. I feel like if we're trying to live like Jesus, there comes we have to come to that point as well with some people. Does that make sense?
It does. And you also, I'm sorry to keep hopping ahead
No.
on your, but you use the words love versus codependency.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, when I read that phrasing that you were using, that is the difference between parenting and a marriage.
Hmm.
The way I love my kids is I am raising my kids so that they will go be independent on their own. They'll be able to do their own things. I feel like I have chosen to be codependent with Michelle. The goal is for me to live all of my earthly years with her and do things with her and have money together and save for things, right? Everything that we do codependently together. I think when you're helping somebody, you're not marrying them. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to say you're parenting them, that they're a child and they can't take care of themselves, but you know what I'm saying? It's more of a parent relationship in that you're trying to get them up on their feet so they can go and do for themselves for the rest of their life. I don't think that Jesus expected the Good Samaritan to just walk around with the guy who got beat up for the rest
It's a
of his
great
life and
point.
make sure everything is okay forever.
That's a really great point. I
So you're
do think,
nurturing for this independence. You're not nurturing forever and ever and ever and ever.
and I think sometimes we put blame on other people. We blame other people for not helping us out of situations that we continually get ourselves into.
Yes.
And I think that that's when it can get negative, and then it gets thrown on our face that we're not being a good Samaritan and we're not being a Christian. And that can be
Oh,
difficult.
oh yeah.
That can be really difficult, because especially when you love people, but then you're trying to balance your own life and your own relationship with God. And so I think we can fall on both sides as Christians. We can be the kind of people who expect too much out of those that are helping us.
Hmm.
And I think other times we can be the person that someone is expecting too much out of us. And I think, first of all, there has to be open communication.
Yes.
But secondly, if somebody says, "Hey, I can't do this right now," I think sometimes we got to be reflective and think, "Okay, well, what then can I do for myself?" And some of that I say out of, like, I've been that person. There were times when Liam and I first started dating and I wanted all this reassurance all the time. And eventually he said to me, like, you have to trust me at some point. And
Hmm.
I had to then deal with what was inside of me. I couldn't keep asking him to give things that I shouldn't have expected him to give. Not saying that people shouldn't give you reassurance at times, but sometimes it's an inner problem. And it's
Yes,
not the Good Samaritan not being the Good Samaritan.
it is. And I also think that it is exponentially worse in a phone world
Oh my gosh.
because you could
Yes.
legitimately text with somebody all night long. And you could be watching TV and you could be wrapping Christmas presents and you could be doing all the other things that you normally do. And let's just again say we're in this sort of kind of like mentor-mentee relationship, and the mentor is just drawing a line at, okay, we've been texting for a couple hours here. I'm gonna take a break, right? As the mentee, you're like, well, what's wrong? You're just sitting there watching TV. You know what I mean? You're not doing anything important, and so there's just this, can be, not all the time, can be this just like constant draw and drain on your resources and your attention, and uh, that's nowhere in not the prodigal son, Matt. You have got to stop that. That's nowhere in the story of the Good Samaritan. In fact, the Good Samaritan dropped the dude off at the hotel, paid for his stuff, but went, I mean, Jesus said specifically, went on about his other business. He lived his life.
Yeah. And Liam
You're
said
not
something.
living their life. You're living
No,
your life,
your
and you're
life.
helping them.
Yep. And I think that's key. People don't live your Christianity for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do that. And that's hard.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like I've had to work through that in different areas of my life. Like, it's not my dad's job. It's not my parents' job. It's not my pastor. Like, that has been difficult for me. But I do want to challenge everybody who is either new to Christianity or has done this for a long time. I want to challenge you to look for opportunities to be the Good Samaritan.
Absolutely.
Because when we ask ourselves, what do we learn from this? It's that there is more required of us than we think. It's not just being nice. It is going above and beyond. But also it's not doing it to the point that you're trying to live somebody's life for them or to correct their mistakes when they're not willing to do it themselves. It's challenging.
It is very challenging. And I'll tell you this, the older I get, the more I realize I am a task-oriented person. Mm-hmm. I like people, but I'm really not people-oriented. I could go a whole day without small talk and things, and I could go a whole day without talking to you, and I'd be okay. You know what I mean? Be totally fine. And I do not want to be the Levite who is hurried by on temple business because I've got this task and that task. I need to get these things done for the church or for the kingdom. Well, then I'm just totally missing the point of what the kingdom is about. The kingdom is about like us seeing people like God sees people. Yeah. And in my little task-oriented nature, I'm afraid sometimes I'm more likely to be the Levite than I am the Good Samaritan because here I am. I've got my 5-point checklist. I need to go get all these things done because things do need to get done. I do need to, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to do good things, but I'm kind of like missing the point. I don't want to be a Pharisee. I don't want to keep the law, but miss the point of the law.
Yeah, but I love you. I love you saying that because I think sometimes people see and think of the Levite and they're like, oh, he's so bad. And it's like, no, if you understand that you are task oriented. And so that's the way your brain is. And it takes a little bit to pull you out of that. That's okay. Mm-hmm. That's why the Bible challenges us to pull us out of that. Mm-hmm. But we still need you. So those people that may, let's say they got offended by something, you have to give grace sometimes. You have to give grace and give understanding. This has just been really interesting to me. This whole story has been so interesting.
I agree. There have been so many people and situations and things and individuals that I've tried to help just kind of all of it just sort of fly through my head as we're doing this podcast. And I'll probably get off here and reflect like, oh no, was I wrong? Did I do that wrong? Where was I right? Where was I wrong? But again, I feel like this is part of the wrestling. I need to be put in some uncomfortable places to think about myself. If I'm not thinking about myself, what am I doing?
Yeah. I have to say, to our listeners, thank you. Thank you for always putting up with us and working through this stuff with us because like we've said, we are imperfect people.
Yes.
And so there are things that we talk about and work through that we're still wrestling with as well. Mm-hmm. And so we do encourage you, reach out, let us know your thoughts. Let's talk about it more because that's what the word should be. It should be living, cutting away at things inside of us and cutting away at things in front of us. We always enjoy going beyond Sundays and we hope that you enjoyed the conversation that we had today. Again, if you have thoughts, comments, please reach out to us. Go to beyondsundayspod.com for our show links and socials. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.